Ladies and gentlemen, this is your final boarding call for the good ship SS Tomorrow.
Today on The Friendly Futurist, some clever technology to help with Australia's energy transition. Welcome back, and today's guest is Erich Kisi. He's the co-founder of NGA Thermal in Newcastle, New South Wales. Now, this is a very clever piece of technology. This technology can store energy at high temperatures. It's really all to do with heat transfer. So it's filling in the gaps for renewable energy. We don't even have to use the N word, the nuclear option. But I really love this because this is a great story of Aussie ingenuity. And if it has to be from one city in particular, it has to be Newcastle, our former steel city. But it's got that sort of that engineering, that sort of that know-how. Easily find someone who knows what they're doing, particularly with materials and material science. And this is a great example of this. And this is what sort of story we need to show the world that, yes, we are taking renewables seriously. Yes, we've got some amazing technology. It's also sort of reminded me how Paris last year heated the swimming pool with the internet with sort of that heat transfer. It's the same sort of principle, if you know what I mean. Anyhow, Erich is coming up after the break. And welcome back to another episode, a very interesting episode about our renewable journey. And we've got a special guest. We've got Erich Kisi, and he's from NGA Thermal over in Newcastle in New South Wales, greatest city in the world. I've never been. That's apparently what was said. Anyhow, Erich's been on the journey 35 years with the University of Newcastle, and he even got supervisor 5 of his PhD, former PhD students now working for him. So we've got a very knowledgeable expert here. And Erich, welcome on board. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Dave. I'm very happy to be here.
And for the sake of our listeners, can you just give us a quick rundown of your journey so far and start wherever you want to start?
Okay. Well, my personal journey, I've got it's actually about 45 years of experience in materials science from back in the old days when I worked at the BHP as a metallurgist, right through to being a professor at the university and teaching and researching in materials science. And I'm a co-inventor of the technology that we're bringing to market in our company, NGA Thermal. I'm a co-founder of the company. These days, I'm the executive chair and chief scientist. So I guess what that means is I've got responsibility for the board and shareholder matters and all of that high-end stuff. And then right down at the other end, I've also got responsibility for all the R&D activities and for connecting with chief scientists or chief engineers of customers, investment companies, governments, and things like that. So it's I'm a bit all over the place.
Okay. Yeah. Well, before start off, can you explain to my listeners what NGA Thermal is and more about the technology?
Yeah, sure. So NGA Thermal is a company that develops and manufactures thermal energy storage products. So our core product is a thermal energy storage material. MGA stands for miscibility gap alloy, and it basically means that our product is made of a couple of components that don't mix. So there's what's called a miscibility gap. And one of the components is as fine particles that melt. And I think I'm going into too much technical detail, actually.
Please roll. This is fascinating.
Roll it. Okay. So one of the components in the MGA block, and I should have brought one along to show you, but has fine particles of metallic material which melts at a certain temperature. And then the rest of it is what we call a matrix. So it's just the glue that holds it all together, if you like. So it's solid outwardly, but inside there are bits of it that melt. And that's significant because when things change from solid to liquid, it takes a lot of energy to drive that change. So essentially you're storing energy by changing that. Then when you drive it in the other direction, you release that energy and you can use it. That's our core product, MGA's thermal energy storage blocks. And then we have developed around that an entire system, an engineered system that accepts renewable electricity, renewably generated electricity, converts that electricity from electricity to heat, which is about 100% efficient. And then we store the heat. So it's a large insulated box, if you like, if you want to put it that simply, or a container. The blocks stay hot for a very long time. So at giant scale, we might only lose about 1% per day. And then we can dispatch the energy as heat.
Wow. Really interesting. Mexico reminds me, that's over in France, the Olympic swimming pool for the Paris Olympics was heated up the same way, or similar with heat exchange, heat transfer, yeah.
Yep.
The data center. Yeah.
Your hot water service is a thermal storage device. It doesn't store much thermal energy, but it stores it and it delivers it when you need it. We're storing our energy up in as high as 650 degrees Celsius. And so we can deliver that energy as heat anywhere from about 150 to 650. So it makes it ideally suited to things like decarbonising industrial processes. I'll probably talk about that a bit later.
I guess too, this technology, and there's a little weak point in the renewables, and it's Dunkelflaute, or when there's no wind, no solar. Doesn't really happen too often in this country, but it's probably the argument for nuclear, even though we're not going to go too much in the nuclear option. But I guess that technology could actually mitigate Dunkelflaute.
Absolutely. That's its entire purpose. So probably easiest to just think about solar energy because everybody knows the solar cycle and is in contact with it, whereas the wind is a bit more variable. But our thermal energy storage system is designed to accept electricity when it's plentiful and cheap, like 6 hours of sunlight in Australia, and store that and dispatch it 24 hours a day. So the system can discharge energy at the same time as it's charging because those systems are separated. So you can discharge 24/7 and only accept energy when it's available on the grid.
Interesting stuff. So what happens if we don't invest in, say, long-term energy storage solutions in this country?
There's a number of problems that come up. Obviously, when we retire more of our fossil fuel generation assets, we'll start to see gaps. We'll start to see periods when the renewables can't supply sufficient energy. And the hidden problem is something I'm quite concerned about is investment in renewables requires that those renewables will be saleable. You'll be able to dispatch them when you've got generating capacity. But if you have a very large amount of, say, solar energy on the grid at lunchtime in summer, the prices are already going to minus $40 a megawatt hour and people are being curtailed. So they're being told to switch off their generation asset. What long duration storage does is it provides a market for that electricity at a positive price rather than a negative price. And that means that it's an enabler for investment in further renewable assets. It's also an enabler for grid stability because the electricity grid becomes less stable if we don't have large spinning reserves of power coming out of coal-fired power stations and we've got an intermittent generation capacity. So what long-duration storage does, and particularly thermal energy storage like we're doing, it allows the grid operator to dump a whole lot of electricity into one or more of these large assets to stabilise the grid when there's a surge. When the sun comes out from across clouds across half of New South Wales, there's a huge surge in power. It needs to be put somewhere. These things or ours in particular, can respond in about 100 milliseconds. So it can take excess power off the grid very fast and very efficiently.
Actually reminds me when I was living in Broome about 2010, that actually local energy provider actually wrote a letter to all the households saying, can you stop putting too many solar panels on? We don't know, on the roofs we can't. We don't know what to do. We've got too much energy.
Yes, that definitely can happen. And with solar, the sun's only available during those daylight hours, so you can't really do too much outside of those. But long duration storage is definitely the answer, and it can smooth it out so that you've got reliable generation. But it requires a number of different things, like coordination. You need, sort of getting ahead of myself here, Dave, but you need,
go ahead. It's about the future, so.
You need we're dealing with mostly very large customers. So large companies that run an oil refinery, or they run a minerals processing plant, or they run a food processing plant or something like that, that uses hundreds of megawatt hours or even gigawatt hours of heat every day and or electric power. And for those customers, this is what they call the hard to abate sector. Thermal energy storage is really the only answer, because you can take the renewables whenever they're available. You can dispatch the heat to the process. I lost my thread there for a bit.
That's right. Yeah. And I guess
I set out there one path and deviated onto another.
Yeah, I guess too, Eric, that it's not just energy. Not electricity we can replace. We can potentially replace, say, natural gas. I can probably see a potential. 10, 20 years down the track, we have a barbecue with a renewable source. That'd be a big sell for the Aussie public. Yeah.
Yeah, it's got the potential in any process that uses heat. It's just the economics. They work best at a larger scale, but certainly for businesses and companies that use heat in their manufacturing process and regularly use a large amount of heat, that's about 24% of global emissions, industrial heat. And thermal energy storage is one of the very few technologies. But yes, gas in Australia, that's replacing gas that's being burnt to produce steam for the industrial process. In other countries, sometimes they use coal or oil, which is even dirtier, but it's the same idea. And it's already more economical at scale in terms of the cost of your energy year by year to do it with renewable electricity storage and thermal storage and then dispatching the heat. That's more economical than buying gas at today's prices.
You're right.
And that's only the fuel cost, not the asset cost.
We discuss wind, solar, long-term storage, but is there any other renewable energy in this country particularly we haven't untapped yet?
Oh, well, there was a lot of discussion about geothermal. That was probably between 20 years ago and 10 years ago. I'm not an expert on geothermal. I know that it's used overseas, but often that's in countries that have a lot of seismic activity and volcanic activity, such as New Zealand and Iceland, places like that. I think Australia has geothermal resource, but it's very deep under the ground. And then obviously there's technological challenges with working at that depth and extracting a useful amount of energy from it. And there's generation, but then there's storage. Obviously hydroelectric storage is quite good. So pumped hydroelectric storage like Snowy 2.0, it sounds great. It's got good round trip efficiency and so on. But as we're seeing, and these projects take a very long time to roll out, and I think it's considerably over budget. I don't know the actual numbers, but considerably. So there's a cost to doing that.
It leads me on to my next question, and as this show is about the future, and we see our renewable transition, say, in 10, 15 years' time.
Where do I see it? I think we will actually get very close to our 2030 targets if we do it sensibly, and then our 2050 targets are even more achievable than that. The 10 or 15 years, I would hope that we had largely decarbonised domestic electricity supply, and I would hope that we had a largely decarbonised industrial electricity supply, and that the remaining sectors, the very difficult end is heavy transport and also industrial processes that operate at very high temperatures. So from where we cap out up to 1,500 or even 2,000 degrees, there are a number of things that operate right up in those very high temperatures that are difficult to mitigate, and they may rely on things like hydrogen as a fuel, which is still a long way off in my own estimation.
Yeah. And Eric, before we go, is there anything I didn't ask but should?
I don't know. I've got a whole lot of stuff here about our factory and why we manufacture in regional New South Wales.
Well, go for it.
Go for
renewable jobs is a big hot ticket item. Yeah.
So I guess the reason we're in Tomago, where we are, just near Newcastle, is that the Hunter region has got centuries of heavy manufacturing and heavy industry. Here, there's a large workforce of technically savvy, can-do people that just get in and do things. They just get in and do what needs to be done safely, but, without making too much fuss about it. That means that there's a very large network of engineering, trades, and other and manufacturing businesses that are sort of relatively well connected to each other. There's a bit of a history in the Hunter of working a bit more collaboratively rather than competing about every little thing. Obviously, if you've got a direct competitor, then you have to remain competitive, but people don't go in boots and all and try and take each other down because the whole system rises. The rising tide floats all the boats.
Floats all boats, yeah.
Heard that many times. Yeah. So it's that sort of a place where if you need a particular service or you need advice on something you haven't done before, there'll be someone in the local HunterNet. HunterNet's an organisation that sort of ties and connects local businesses together, manufacturing and industry, heavy industry. So that's all good. Plus, my whole workforce is locally connected. We've got, I think you mentioned earlier, we've got 5 of my former PhD students in the company. Got about 35 people overall, and there's an availability of manufacturing space. So if I was to go to Sydney and try and find 5,500 square metre factory that I could rent, good luck. Whereas we have one right here, and we've been in here for 2.5 years, and it's the home to sort of our 3 main work streams.
Very good. Now, that's very, very encouraging too, seeing that, an old industrial city like Newcastle is getting a rebirth with renewables. And I hope that's a very good story to finish up on the episode with. Before we go, Eric, where else can we find you?
You mean MGA?
Yeah, MGA and out there on the interwebs.
Yep. Our website's MGA Thermal, all one word, mgathermal.com. We're on, I don't even know what socials we're on. I'm sorry.
It's all good. I can find it later.
Yeah. But yeah, people are welcome to jump on the website and have a look. There's a contact information, contact@mgathermal.com. We've got a few videos and things on there. There's a couple of links to YouTube videos that explain what the company does and explain what how the technology works that are available from the website.
Fantastic. Eric, it's been a pleasure chatting to you this morning.
It's also been a pleasure for me, Dave. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And thanks to Eric and the team at Sling & Stone for organising the interview. Next week, we're continuing our theme of the renewable energy transition, but we're going to talk about our wider implications for infrastructure. I hope you enjoy us next time here on the Good Ship SS Tomorrow. The Friendly Futurist is a podcast West production. It's produced and edited by me, Dave Monk. If you love this show, please take the time to give us a 5-star review on Spotify or your favourite podcast platform. And be sure to spread the word throughout. We've got 12,000 of you and growing at my army of little figureheads of people who are innately curious about what's coming up around the corner. Until next time, friends, remember to stay curious, and the future is user-friendly.
Another Podcasts West production.
This podcast is just for educational purposes and it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial planner or advisor. Please do your homework and seek professional help before you take on any adventures.